So the first mistake I made when it came to pacing was assuming that fatigue was solely physical fatigue. I genuinely thought if whatever I did, as long as I physically rested, that it would make a difference. And that was obviously wrong because resting did no good. So then I discovered that there were 4 different levels of fatigue. There's physical, and then cognitive, so spending too much time thinking, social, getting tired after seeing a lot of people, and emotional, worn out from dealing with difficult people or being triggered very easily, things like that. This might be the case if you live in a very stressful environment, if you've got something going on at the moment that's quite upsetting. So what I did is that once I realized that that was the case, I started making a note of what I had done in a day and how much I had used on all 4 of those areas. And I quickly realized that if I had exerted myself in that area, I had to rest that area only. And that sometimes I could push myself in other areas on days when I was resting, as long as I didn't overexert that one. So that made an enormous difference to how much control I had over the peaks and troughs, because before I was just trying to rest physically for everything. I could have worked all day, got cognitively tired, and then because I had brain fog, I then the next day, instead of choosing not to work at all, I would try and work on something that I thought was less cognitively taxing, which of course wasn't the case. The other thing that I didn't realize in regards to cognitive stuff as well is that multitasking is particularly draining. I could do more of one thing in a go, but then I could do less hours doing one thing and another thing and then another thing and another thing and another thing. And apparently it's a big drain. Every time you switch your focus from one thing to another, it takes a deficit from the cognitive folks. And this is true as well of social media and scrolling through feeds. Appreciate the irony of me pointing that out, considering I'm talking to you on YouTube. But each time you move to a different subject, it tires you out. Social, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. But I think there's a lot of us who are quite socially isolated at the moment, and because of our illness and also because of how we're feeling inside. Either friends have dropped off, that certainly happened to me, or you've actually chosen to take yourself away. The way I've dealt with that is that, I'm not spending time now with people I know who drain me, and I'm only spending time with people I know who fill me back up. And that's been quite a positive thing. So I can find that I can spend a lot more time with people who fill me up than people who don't. It's a very kind way of saying it. Pick your friends more wisely. I certainly did. And then that's the emotional side of things. And that kind of folds into the social side as well. I found that if I'd had a very, very stressful day, there's some people in my life that I can't avoid. If I'd had a very stressful day, then I would have to make sure that the next day was very unstressful. So, that was the first thing. I was just trying to pace for physical, and I didn't realize that there were 4 other areas that you could very much pace with. And the second thing was the idea of gradual increase of activity. And again, apply this to all 4 areas. So when you are trying to increase your activity, a lot of people kind of do into this boom and bust kind of thing. So you try and do a lot, and then you dip really hard, and then you try and do a lot, and then you dip really hard. And the trend line for that is quite flat. However, if you gradually increase the amount you increase it by, what you end up with, so you do a little bit more, but not too much, and it'll dip down, and then you can do a little bit more, and you will increase and increase and increase. And finding out what that level or what the percentage increase, start at 1%. If you can't get out of bed, then just see if you can sit up a little bit, or increase your incline a little bit for a few minutes, and then the next day try a minute extra. If you can't walk more than 50 meters, then make sure that when you know exactly how far you can walk, and then the next time just a few more meters, not too much, just a tiny amount. And if you do that daily or every other day, depending on where your pacing requirements are right now, if you can increase in distance and frequency over a long period, very long period, you will see results, and you'll see a lot less crashes as well. And it took me a long time to work that out, but of course it was especially disastrous before I'd worked out that there were 4 different sides to it as well. So those are the 2 biggest mistakes I made on pacing, and I will say doing pacing that way was a big part of me getting better.